Take 5,000. It's your boy Lucas back at it again with some applied anthropology. So to start, the definition of applied anthropology is the application of anthropological skills and knowledge. So I wanted to pick Wake Forest, but they didn't have a lot about medical anthropology, which is closer related to my internship since I did my internship at LeBarn. So I picked Stanford, which is my safety. But before we get into that, let's talk about medical anthropology. So medical anthropology is the study of how health and illnesses are shaped, experienced, and understood in the light of global historical and political forces. So at Stanford, they have a really broad field of bioanthropology, and they study things such as cultures of medicine, the social nature of emergent biotechnology, the effect of the economics of bodily injury, the psychic expressions of disorder, the formation of social networks of health, and the lived consequences of disability and inequality. And finally, the ever-changing concepts of human biological differences and race. So I decided to pick two professors that studied some interesting things that were for Stanford. So Angela Garcia, she's a professor at Stanford, and she explores political, economic, and psychic processes through which illness and suffering is produced and lived. I know, that sounds like a lot, but she did a long-term ethnographic research with poor families and communities struggling with multi-generational experiences of addiction, depression, and incarceration. And so she used her understanding of anthropology to, study these cultures and find out like why these communities are struggling with those topics. And Loklan Jan, I think he's Swedish, that's why I can't say his name, is a professor and primarily concerned with the ways in which stories get told about injuries and how they are thought to be caused and how it matters. So this is basically based off political and social significance of the stories and how it led to the study of law, production, design, and medical errors and historics of engineering. So that's really cool. I also picked so let's start. My internship was following an anesthesiologist at LeBarn. So something that I also learned from, I could say I learned from this unit and also experienced was the language anesthesiologists use. And I found a ethnography written by Kanjay and Naisha, who studied the communication between anesthesiologist personnel and patients before and after general anesthesia. They found that there are three main styles of communication before they are put to sleep: descriptive, functional, and evocative. So description, which was the one that I definitely noticed most, and that's like briefing the patient before they go back for the surgery, is explain to the patients what he or she might feel. That's while they're going to sleep and after they're going to sleep. Functional is to maintain the sociological stability and assess the change in depth of anesthesia. That I did not hear at all. So that's from my personal experience. And then something that I didn't hear of all was evocative, which referred to images and metaphors, which, none of that was used while I was there. So I think this also depends on like what hospital you're at. But at LeBarn, descriptive was only used. So then after the patient, they found that it's only one type of communication for the anesthesiologist specifically, and that was to only establish that the patient was awake, which is basically just waking up the patient and be like, hey, Lucy, wake up, please, wake up, blah, blah, blah. So, for medical anthropology and how this is applied, I think that it is important that we have applied anthropology, because if you're going to different fields of work, it's best to understand what cultures, like what culture you're going in, and how you could like correctly medical treat patients while still abiding by the culture's rules or respecting the culture. It's because that would be important, like if you're going to like somewhere in Africa and they have traditional medical uses, then I think it'd be best to understand these uses while you're going there. And I think that's the main thing that I learned from this chapter, is that it is important for you to understand the cultures behind where it is and what you're doing before you go on it, and that's in any field at all. And it's your boy. He's at 5:54 right now, so I'm over time limit, and I gotta go. So deuces.